So, where do I begin with this story? Well, I guess we could start with the day I bought the car. It was a fall month in 2014. My ex-wife and I, who I was married to at the time, walked onto a car lot in Bentonville, test drove this 2013 Ford Escape, and ended up buying it. I'm going to tell you about my ownership experience with it. So 2013 was the first year of the new body style for the Ford Escape, and it was also one of the largest production years of Ford Escapes for that. Ford made more than 295,000 Escapes for that model year. This particular model we purchased was the SEL model with the 4-cylinder EcoBoost engine and leather interior on the inside. I will say this much, I always thought the car had very good acceleration. It was only a front-wheel drive model. It was not all-wheel drive, but we liked the car a lot after test driving it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have bought it, I guess. But yeah, we liked it a lot and thought it was going to be a good car for many years. However, we only ended up owning it for 2 years. So at the time we bought it, it seemed very reasonably priced for a lot of other cars in that model year. And there was a reason for it. It had 50,000 miles. 50,000 miles in 2 calendar years for a car that was only 1 model year old. Since I bought it from a car lot, I don't know who the first owner was, obviously, but somebody bought it in the fall of 2012, and for that 2-year period between the fall of 2012 and the fall of 2014, put more than 50,000 miles on it. However, we weren't that concerned with the mileage because, according to the Blue Book value, we were getting a good deal, and at 50,000 miles, usually a lot of cars still have a lot of life left in them. So we got it. And we got an extended warranty, and I believe the term on the payments was 72 months. Hopefully it was only 72 months. So even though the car belonged to both me and my ex-wife, she was the primary driver and she used it as her daily driver for commuting to work and such. And it turned out we weren't that great at keeping the miles down either, because after 2 years of ownership, we added 40,000 miles, about 20,000 miles a year. So one problem that we had with the car throughout the course of owning it, and I don't think this was uncommon at all for these vehicles, was the infotainment screen, the touchscreen infotainment screen, the radio display having glitches from time to time. It seemed like there were even times where it would quit working for a day or two, but it was never so long or so bad that we, I guess, couldn't stand it. The most notable repair that we had to put it in the shop for was about 6 months after owning it. One of the windshield wiper blade motors went bad. Not the windshield wiper blade needed replacing, the wiper blade motor. And we took that to the Ford dealer. It was covered under the extended warranty, except for sales tax and diagnosis charges. So we had to pay a little something, but it wasn't that much considering the cost of the repair bill. Then, like a month or two later, after we get that done, the other wiper blade motor goes out. And I don't know why, but both times it was supposedly one wiper blade motor that was malfunctioning, but neither wiper blade motor would work. They probably should have both been replaced the first time, but whatever. And then, didn't really have too many problems for a while that I can really remember, just kind of standard maintenance stuff. And then my ex was driving to work one day, and she said she had to pull over because all of a sudden the temperature gauge, pull over and park the car, I should say. All of a sudden the temperature gauge went up to the red and a check engine light came on. Now this particular problem, there's actually a video done by another YouTuber, Ford Tech Mock You Loco, I think it's called. He talks about a valve in the cooling system that has a tendency to fail on these vehicles with the EcoBoost engine. And I'm guessing that's probably what it was. It was probably that valve going bad. But when I went back with my ex to get the car later, we decided to try driving it home, that I would follow her and just watch and see what happened. Drove home just fine. Took it into the dealership the next day. Drove there just fine. We explained to them what happened. They drove around for, I guess, a lot of the day and gave the car back to her at the end, saying they could not replicate the issue. Now, maybe this wasn't like a known problem for this type of vehicle back then because it was still relatively new, but I'm pretty sure it was the malfunction with that coolant valve the guy talks about in that video. And for what it's worth, I checked the mileage and I figured the dealership mechanics had put about 80 miles on the car, driving it around to replicate the issue. They must have all wanted to get out of the office. Yeah, buddy, we got to drive this thing around, figure out what's wrong with it. I don't think there is anything. Yeah, 80 miles for nothing. So now that particular issue never came up again, at least while we owned the car. But there was another thing that did come up during the second year of ownership. It would just periodically stall. Usually just when you were driving around at lower speeds or stuff like that in parking lots. But yeah, every now and then it would just stall for whatever weird reason. Maybe there was something wrong with the EcoBoost turbo going bad. Who knows? And it wasn't kind of like that prior thing. It wasn't something that we could really replicate or tell when it was going to happen. As far as I can remember, it didn't even set off the check engine light. But yeah, it had this weird stalling problem where every now and then, maybe once a week or every couple weeks or whenever, just stall on you. Now, the last thing I can remember pretty well that we had to deal with before getting rid of the vehicle was it developed these weird electrical problems in the dash where some of the interior lights didn't work and stuff like that. And it was one of those things, if this had been some 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old car, we probably wouldn't have even worried about it. But it's a nice car, and it's only a couple of years old, so you want as much stuff like that to work as possible, to keep the value of it up. So we took it to the dealership to get it fixed. Like I said, we had the extended warranty that covered most of the repair costs. And I kid you not, I believe it took 4 trips before it was finally fixed. Now, the dealership was fair on its bill toward us and the warranty company. I'll say that. It wasn't outrageous considering you think 4 trips to the dealership, that must have cost a fortune. But it's one of those things where you take it in, one guy looks at it, he thinks he has it figured out, but then you can't finish it all, so you have to bring it back another day for him to look at. And then maybe the next time you bring it back, somebody else is looking at it. They have to recheck the previous guy's work, all that. So yeah, it took more trips than it should have for sure. And even though I don't have too much to complain about the dealership, that was one time where I felt like maybe we would have gotten slightly better service if we had bought the car from them. Because obviously the Ford dealer knew, and they can check the VIN number, and the decal from the used car dealer was still on the back side of the car, so they knew obviously we didn't buy it from them. But I don't want to be too hard on them, but obviously that took a few little longer than it should have to fix. So despite the miles and the use we did get out of the car, after some of these odd malfunctions on a car that was 4 years old or less, I'm starting to think and wonder, how much longer should we keep this car, knowing that the extended warranty is probably going to expire in 2017, given the rate at which we're racking up the miles. And my ex was starting to feel a little bit of that too, I think. So, I think it was the day after Christmas, we decided to go ahead and trade it in. We went to the Hyundai dealership, hoping we could get a good deal on a Hyundai. And this could probably be its own video sometime. We traded in the Escape for a brand new 2017 Hyundai Elantra on the day after Christmas. It's either the day after or the second day after. In December 2016. The dealership that we bought the Hyundai from gave us $10,500 on trade for this vehicle, which wasn't quite enough to cover what was still owed on the loan, but we were able to work a deal. And so I know the dealership for a while after we traded it in had the Escape listed at just under $13,000. So $2,500 more than what they gave us on trade. And then they dropped it down from there to just under $12,500. I guess they had trouble selling it because of the high miles. which is what they told us when we were making the deal. They couldn't give us any more just because of the mileage. 90,000 miles on a 4-year-old car. So I don't know how low they went before they sold it. Unfortunately, I haven't checked the full history on this car as far as what's happened since my ex-wife and I got rid of it. But it seems like a vehicle that would be a prime candidate to end up on one of those used car lots that caters to people with bad credit. Somebody with bad credit buys it. They're thinking they're buying this late model Ford. You know, they've owned Fords before that, or knew people that owned Fords before that lasted hundreds of thousands of miles. They're thinking they're getting a good deal, and then probably some short time after they bought it, problems start rearing their head with this thing, and maybe they end up, letting the car get repossessed and further wreck their credit. Unfortunately, it seems like a vehicle that would have been a prime candidate for something like that after we got rid of it. So if you watched my video on how do I know I bought a lemon, you'll know I kind of concluded by saying that when you buy a car that's a lemon, it'll usually have an unexpected or undisclosed problem very early on during the course of ownership. And you may not know it's a lemon at first because of that, but usually they always have something that turns up very early on that'll make you think twice about owning it. And I was thinking about my experience with this car, and I was like, well, I don't know. We did get 40,000 miles out of it, but yeah, there were a lot of problems that really a car with that age and that type of mileage shouldn't have had. I mean, was this thing in a flood and it was cleaned up and never disclosed to us? I don't know. Sometimes flooded vehicles have weird electrical problems. And then I was thinking about the criteria I set for myself with the vehicle being a lemon, and I was like, well, I guess there really didn't have any problems, though, till after that early on in the course of our ownership. And then I remembered it did. After signing the contract with the dealer and getting the keys, we walk out to drive the car home, and the battery is dead. Yeah, had a dead battery right off the bat. And the dealership paid for that to be fixed themselves. They sent us down the road to this private shop, not the dealership, to do it. And this shop that they sent my ex-wife to took about 90 minutes to fix it. I think part of the issue is batteries are hard to replace on these vehicles because they put them under the cowl, under the windshield, and you have to remove some stuff. With them being as new as they were at the time, I doubt this private shop, they even knew how to do it that well till they started removing things. But that's about it on my Ford Escape experience. Some people, one thing else I'll throw in, I got to mention, this car, even though it seemed like it was really high tech and had a lot of features, there were some things it didn't have that, just 1 or 2 model years later, were sort of becoming standard, like a backup camera. That would have been really nice, but it didn't come with a backup camera. But I'm sure the models a couple of years later had them standard, and they're standard on all cars now. So some people may debate or may disagree with my opinion on whether or not this car was a lemon. but I'm labeling it a bad buy. Thank you for watching. If you are an owner of a 2013 Ford Escape, we know they made a bunch of them. I hope you had a more positive experience than I did. If you're looking to buy a 2013 Ford Escape, I would advise you to consider a 2013 Honda CR-V or a 2013 Toyota RAV4 instead. Thank you for watching, and feel free to leave me a comment about your experiences with the Ford Escape from Ford Motor Company. Have a good day.